All right, so I want to talk to you guys about what makes a good business. What are the elements of a business that makes it successful? You can create all kinds of businesses. You can have a coffee company. What is the nice part about going to have a coffee shop? Well, you're the only employee. You don't have to fight with anybody. You make money when people stop by, but you don't get any advertisement done, then nobody's going to stop by. So a coffee shop opened up 5 miles north of Davenport on the side of the highway, in the middle of nowhere. Why did she open up the coffee shop there? Because she and her husband owned that particular farmhouse. So she stuck it in front of her farmhouse in her driveway. I've seen 2 cars there total in the last 4 weeks when I go by. Okay, not sure that coffee shop's going to do very well. She even put a big sign right on the side of the road, very fancy sign. More likely she's going to close that coffee shop. She opened it up in August. How many people drive north of Davenport during the winter? Few of the locals. Why did she open it up at all? Because there's a solid line of cars every Friday and Saturday and Sunday during the summer of people going from Davenport up to the river. Okay, that's the primary drive up to Porcupine Bay, Twin Rivers, 7 Bays, all big resort areas. How many people are driving their boats up there during the winter? None. Should she have opened her coffee shop up in 1st of September? Or should she have put off that expense until, I don't know, maybe May, June? Okay, so then you have a revenue stream coming in, but as it is, she's going to be sitting in that cold, dark little coffee shop by herself all winter and nobody's stopping by. So, not the best business plan, in my opinion, as a business person. Is a coffee shop in that location a risk? Yeah, you're along the side of a major highway that only is a major highway 5 months out of the year. What are you doing the other 7? It's a seasonal thing. You're sitting there in your shop doing nothing. Maybe Sunday morning catching the church crowd that's heading into town. But that's about the only thing that she has to count on. Right? So what I'm trying to get at is, when we think about this, a coffee shop makes sense. It can be a good business, but what is the old adage? Location, location, location. Just because you happen to own the property doesn't mean it's a great place to put a coffee shop. You need to be visible to everybody. Now, are there other coffee shops in Davenport and Reardon?
Yeah.
Multiple coffee shops in Davenport and 1 big coffee shop in Reardon. That is very centrally located on the intersection of 2 highways and great big signs, and she's very well known and very advertised. She also sells 1 gallon of cold brew for pickup on Fridays and Saturdays. So when these people are going up to spend their weekend up at the lake, they swing by her place and they pick up a gallon of cold brew on the way. She's making a killing at it. By the way, she's charging $50 a gallon for the stuff. For homemade cold brew.
Not bad.
Not bad. Yeah, cold your head. It's like, yeah. She gets away with it. She has a big sign up front and a line of cars waiting at her entrance.
Remove the addiction, not the product.
Right? What's that?
Remove the addiction, not the product. We have an inside joke about that.
Oh, okay. No, caffeine is addictive. Anyway, so we're looking at, is that a good location? Yes, because at that intersection, you either can go up to the north part of the Columbia River or continue on to Davenport and hit the south part of the Columbia River. She's right at the intersection between 2 main routes. And during the winter, she doesn't offer that cold brew, but she's actually right there across from the school. And all the kids walk over and get coffee, right? And the teachers. So not a bad location. So when we're looking at a business, is it a good business? Both of them, coffee shops, are big. They're all over the place. But if you don't put them in the right place, they don't work. How well does Thomas Hammer work here on campus during the summer?
Not very well.
Nope, they sit there and play cards all day. Okay? How well does Einstein's Bagels work here on campus during the summer?
It's closed.
It's closed. They close on holidays. All right? So you also use student labor so they can close and not have to worry about employees, right? When we're looking at these things, you have to, now, is those 2 businesses busy during the academic year?
Yes.
Yes. All of you have probably been to Einstein's Bagels and Thomas Hammer. Maybe not.
I've never been Einstein Bagels.
Okay. They make, you know what they serve?
Bagels.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. So, bagel sandwiches and other things too.
Oh, cool.
Okay, so either you can go over and get pub food, or you can get Einstein bagels, and that's pretty much it on campus. That's why Jimmy John's does so well. All right, Jimmy John's delivers, and you can use your ID card.
Yeah, it's free delivery, I believe.
And it's free delivery. But I think that to use your ID card, you actually have to go into Jimmy John's. You have to use cash or credit card to have it delivered.
Yes.
Okay, but, so when we're looking at sandwich shops, we're looking at coffee shops. If you're running a little small coffee shop, what's the chance of you becoming a millionaire? Not if you're only planning on running a coffee shop. So the people that started Thomas Hammer, they're doing extremely well right now. What did they do different than your average person on the side of the road?
Franchise.
They started roasting.
They started roasting and creating their own custom roast. And they started advertising. We have, they were the first ones to bring in that we have sustainably harvested beans. And so they could also claim ethically sourced beans, meaning the Colombian farmers were paid reasonable prices for the beans as opposed to being undercut like Folgers does. So the result being, they had a coffee that met with the ideology of a lot of people in Spokane. Okay, so they started here in Spokane, and they've grown. They're now a multi-million-dollar business with coffee shops all over the place. Okay, the Thomas Hammer that was when I was in the Chase building, I love that place, because between 6 a.m. and noon, once you bought your first, it was on the honor system. There was a big glass jar with a slot in it. Drop in $1, fill yourself up a cup of coffee, and go back to your office. They didn't want you. It was too much work for you to come up to the counter. They found they made more money just charging you $1 to get your own coffee, if you're just having plain coffee. And I said, "Has this jar ever been stolen?" It's just a jar sitting there. They said, "Once, a homeless person came in and stole the jar. The other homeless people downtown chased him down, beat the tar out of him, and brought the jar back." You know why? It's the only coffee they can afford. So the homeless people wanted to make sure that $1 a cup of coffee stayed. They did, if it was $2 if you went up to the counter, it was $1 on the back. Is that a good business?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was dying laughing. And one of the homeless guys was standing there behind me, and he goes, "Yeah, don't go and screw this up, man. This is the best deal in town." So they said, "Yeah, because it was right in the middle of downtown." Okay, but what I'm getting at is, why were they successful? Because they gave each manager the ability to meet their clientele. Now, when I say that, the Thomas Hammer here on this campus, they run it to meet the students. The one downtown feeds suits like myself and homeless people. Those are their two clienteles. People that are in the Chase building, which are all bankers and lawyers, and a little startup company, as well as all these people that are out there that are living on the street. So they changed their model within just that store. They're the only store that offered that. And it exploded, and it did extremely well. So when we're looking at your business, what makes a good business, it depends, on the location of your business and who your clientele is. Okay? Do you guys follow that? So when we're looking at location of a what we call bricks and mortar shop, that becomes a difference. Okay, let's take a look at some of the other businesses that make a difference. Does it make a difference what part of the United States you're in?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, let's take this photo business. Is this a great business to run on the East Coast? If you're doing outdoor photography, there are no mountains on the East Coast. Despite what the East Coast people think, those aren't mountains. Those are just called big hills. All right?
Bring it more inland.
What's that?
Bring it more in, not like near the
Right.
coast.
But if you're trying to do something like this,
Yeah.
there aren't any big animals on the East Coast. We've eaten them all. All right? You're not going to go out there and find bighorn sheep and elk and moose. Those don't exist on the East Coast. Now, if you want to do buffalo, you got to go to Canada. So, who is passionate about big animals? Well, people that grew up watching them. So a book like that is going to be selling better on the Western United States, or into, as we mentioned, elementary schools. Okay? So looking at who is our clientele, where are we going to be located? So I know of some businesses that invented a expandable, so you put this You take a water pipe in a building and you blow this plastic line down the water, down a slug, down the pipe, and it line the pipe with a ceramic, with an epoxy. And you end up with an epoxy lined pipe. Where were they, but before they did that, they would blast air and granite down the pipe and clean all the deposits out of the pipe, then line the pipe. Where were they selling that? They were selling it in Seattle and down in California where the water is really hard and all the steel pipes developed, got plugged up down to, it used to be a 4-inch main, is now you got 1 inch left. They would blast all that out without tearing out any pipes, left all the pipes in the building, blasted everything out, then lined the steel pipe, and now you have the building repiped.
It's a big thing in Spokane too.
Yeah, big thing in Spokane. Well, they moved over here. They started in Seattle,
Got it.
and then they moved here. Okay, because Spokane has a huge problem. Right, but what they did was they saw a need. The existing methodology prior to that was what? Tear the building apart, rip all the plumbing out, put it back in. Now you can do it in place, and they can get it done in a few months instead of a couple years to tear the interior out. How well is that business doing?
Really well.
Really well. And they can't grow fast enough, right? Because they identified a methodology that could go and fix pipes without tearing the walls down. That's a good business. So what do these good businesses I'm mentioning have in common? They're filling a need, not a want. If you don't have the toilets flushing in the building, you don't have employees. If your main water line coming in the building went from 6 inches down to 1 inch, you're not flushing toilets, or you can flush one at a time. And if it's a high-rise building, that doesn't work. Okay? You can't say, okay, we're shutting down all the toilets except for the one on the first floor. That's just going to piss off the entire building, and your tenants are going to move out, right? So you have to retain your tenants in that high-rise. Therefore, you have to retain water coming in. Okay? If the sewer mains are leaking, what's the chance of you retaining tenants? 0. One, the health department will shut you down. 2, everybody's gonna move out because it smells, right? So they were doing sewer lines as well, right? So they could reline those sewer lines without tearing the building down. Now, when we look at the coffee shops placed in the right location, Thomas Hammer, they filled a need downtown. Cheap coffee without having to use a lot of labor to get it out the door. But it's good quality coffee, so you actually attracted the attention of the people in suits like myself, right? So it fit everybody's need, okay? When we look at the coffee shop out there in the middle of Davenport, not filling anybody's needs for 7 months out of the year. Bad location. So she's not filling a need, right? So are you filling a need? And we're talking about the need that you have, with the archery. There's a need. We don't know how to solve that yet, but that's okay. There's a need out there. Need means I am willing to pay, I need to pay because I need to have this. Why is an archery target a need? There's no archery program if you don't have a target. Archery Targets is a club here on campus. Why are clubs a need?
Student engagement, student retention, and making sure you have constant enrollments.
Right. The university sees clubs as a need because we have to keep enrollment. That means we want to make something that people want to come here. We need to make a product that people want to buy, so we need to make it fun. When students are having fun, they stay. When students aren't having fun, they go home. Fundamentals of college, right? If you're enjoying yourself and you're learning and you're getting a degree and you're having a good time, are you going to stay here? Yes. If you're really miserable here and nobody likes you and there's nothing to do, you're going to find another university. We know that. So we create clubs with the intention of retaining you. You like archery. We got an archery club. So it's important for the university. The university has a need. I need an archery club. I need a rocketry club. I need an aerospace club. I need a Baja club, right? We need these things in order to keep you here. But when we're looking at that, when we're looking at this business of targets, do you understand why that's a need to the university? It's not a need to your club. You really want to have a club. So it's kind of, yeah, this is a great want. I really want to have this club. But to the university, it's a need because it retains students. So it's not directly you who benefits. It's me. It's the university that benefits by you having a good time. You see the difference of that? Who is the need? So today we need to identify who is the person that absolutely needs that stuff as well. Okay, that's the first thing a good business has. But it must provide a service or a product. You need to provide something to somebody in order to be a real business. It has to be a definable, definite product. And one product at a time. Okay? But the point is that you always have a new product behind the first product. Okay, you're going to come out there with your bug juice, right? There's actually a bottle of stuff called bug juice that was around years ago. And it was a big thing for kids to drink bug juice. It was basically Kool-Aid in a bottle.
That,
Yeah, it was just Kool-Aid. But
It's nasty. It's way too sweet.
see, she remembers the stuff. Okay, I never drank any. Being a diabetic, I try to avoid sugar. So when we're looking at your product, what's right behind it? We don't know yet. But we're gonna have another product for that bit. As you start getting that stuff, getting to market, getting it sold, you got another one coming right behind it. Yeah, I can tell you what you're gonna do. You're gonna come up with a way that I can have it in a white, that when I'm driving my motorcycle, I would wipe my visor off. Because those stupid things wipe out my visor.
Not a bad idea.
What's that?
That's a pretty good idea.
Yeah. Well, I have a visor, and then I got underneath it is a second visor that's the tinted one. When I got home, I had the first one up, the second one was up, and I was down to my glasses trying to get to the house. And by the time I got to the house, I couldn't see out of the glasses either. So, yes, I could really, I need something else. Even.
And then pull out the contacts. And
I know, I was just like, I was having a heck of a time getting home that day. Man, they were thick.
Well, if it also has pet sake, you could also wipe down your dog's visor in your sidecar.
He got a windshield this year.
Oh,
Yeah, that's because he kept taking his goggles and he figured out how to get his dew claw underneath him and throw him on the highway when we hit 60 miles an hour. Bastard. Anyway, so then I have to stop, turn around, go back and get the goggles all the time. And so I bought we won't say how much money for a windshield for the sidecar. So now he sits behind the windshield and he's very happy. He doesn't have to wear goggles anymore. Dogs don't enjoy goggles. I don't care what people say. But he does like the windshield. So at 60 miles an hour, he can sit there. At below 60, he sticks his head around the outside of the door. So that way he can still get his, smell the air. All right, so we have to be able to provide a service, okay? But it also needs to solve a real problem. That's the thing. It has to solve a real problem, something that they can't do. Can I sort through, Michael, all of my photos and create my own photo book? Yes, but I don't have time. I'm overwhelmed with time. Teaching you guys every day, I'm in this building, typically 8 to 12 hours a day. I don't have time to go, and when I get home, I'm shot. I don't have time to sort through photos. So these photos have been building up since 1988, right? Are there other people like me that are just so time overwhelmed that they can't get around to sorting their own photos and making a photo album?
Yeah.
Absolutely, okay? But making a decent photo album, yeah, I could go send the whole pile off and have them all printed. I don't want to do that. I don't want to pay for that. I want just the good ones. I don't want them sorted by theme or sorted by, some sort of sorting mechanism. When we take a look at the bug juice, is there a need for that stuff?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I made it really clear to you. I really need this, okay? All right. Are you solving a need? I think you can solve a need not necessarily for the individual shooter, but for shooting ranges.
yeah.
Now
Companies.
because now they're going to buy a dozen of them. That's a much better deal than selling one at a time. Let's go sell a dozen of them, and then we service them.
Yep.
Right? Where do we make money? What I tell you GM makes money on?
Aftermarket parts, aftermarket care, aftermarket services.
Yes, that's where the big money is. After the initial sale. Okay? Maintenance is a big one. Maintenance takes you very little money, takes you very little time, but you can charge a fortune for it. Because once they have your product, they're stuck with you. Right? Right? Does that make sense? You pull all that wire and they need something fixed, they're going to call you up. Then you're going to charge them a fortune to come back and fix what they screwed up. Okay? Because they went out there and they were playing around, they broke the ends off the cords, and they don't know how to put a new end on the cord. You're going to charge them a $100 service fee, right? It takes you 5 minutes to clip a new one on there. It costs you almost nothing, but you charge them $100. That is profit, right? Okay, that's just pure profit. You'll put new, because somebody wouldn't tripped over this cord on the floor and ripped the end off. You love that. You want them tripping on those wires. Okay. I'm joking, Marco. You really don't. You got to put them in according to code.
Yeah.
But as long as you get them in according to code. But then somebody is going to pull that stupid thing off, or you're going to break the little clip off, which is even funnier.
The wall jacks that get damaged the most because they plug their PCs in and they move it.
And
so replace those a lot.
Yeah, and you charge, that's a 30-hour service call. So I asked the university, I said, okay, I have power on the opposite side of that wall, and I want to put it through the wall onto this side. And then also have, over here, I have power on that side of the room, and I wanted to bring it over to the other side of the room. They told me it was 1 day to do it, take it from one side of the room, up through the rafters where there's nothing up there, and down the wall on the other side. That'd take a full 8-hour service call at $275 an hour. I said, I can buy a good extension cord for that. We got an extension cord that runs around the outside of the wall. Now, no, we're not paying $275 an hour for 8 hours to move the socket from one side of the room to the other. But businesses do. Okay? And it being, so when we look at that need, that becomes a need. They need to hire you back, right? But that is one of the service. And it solves a real problem, because once you got it installed, if I damage that socket, I need that fixed. That's not a want. I need that place back. Yes, I'm pissed at my employee for yanking the cord out, but I need that socket fixed. All right? So we're going to look through these things. The other thing a good business has, pays the bills. If your business is not profitable and you can't live on it, that isn't a very good business. We get into business for one purpose, and that is to provide ourselves with a standard of living that we find acceptable, or the potential to be a standard of living that's acceptable. We know the first year we're going to starve to death. That's the advantage of starting your business as a college student. You're already starving to death. You already know how to live on diddly squat. But once you get into your 40s, you've got a wife, kids, mortgage, car payment. You're not going to go back out and start a startup. You can't take the risk. It's very, very difficult unless you have another revenue stream. Okay? Now, let me clarify. There's a number of places where you can. Let's say you come out of the military after 20 years. Good time to start a business. One, you've got the discipline, you got the knowledge of how to run a business. You're also at the discipline to see it to the end. But if you are unemployed, that's an opportune time to start a business. Why? Tired of working for everybody else. I got laid off. I've got unemployment coming in for the next 52 months. I'm going to use that as my income as I build up a new business. Great time to go back to school. Great time to get a startup going. There's a number of opportunities. Now, you don't want to be laid off. You don't want to have to go on unemployment. You're laughing.
It's my life story. That's literally where I
Exactly.
By the way, I figured that. I've been there. All right. Yeah. So yeah, that happens, right? That happens, as we go through these things. Life goes on. I've had employees that I've had to lay off as I reduce companies, and yeah, several of them went out and started businesses. One of them went out and started a cabinetry shop. He's now a huge cabinetry company. Very proud of him. But he used to be a really damn good design engineer. Why he went into cabinetry, I have no idea. But he had a love for wood, so that's where he ended up. What I'm trying to get at, you guys, is that when we look at it, it's got to pay the bills, and you need to adjust your lifestyle to what it can produce until it can grow. And once it starts growing and starts producing, that's when you can start living a higher standard of living. Initially, not so much, okay? It does not have to be high tech. I have that in there. All engineers believe I have to have a high-tech carbon fiber drive shaft in order to be competitive. Does it have to be high-tech? The other thing, this is one of my other notes. Simpler the better with room to grow. The less complex you are, which is why I pushed you guys away from the carbon fiber or the drive shaft, the more simple your product, the more simple your first product, the easier it is to get to profitability. Once you get to profitability, now we can add the complex product onto it because we've got time to play. The goal of a business is to get you to where you have a revenue stream coming in, then make it complicated. Don't start with complicated because it takes too long and you burn through too much savings, or you starve for too long and you're kicked out of your house, right? So you want to start with one product, very simple, get it to where it's selling. Then come in, your next product can be a little bit more complicated. Talking about is that second time around. You don't always get that. So hit it first with a simple product, one focus between now and March. Then once that happens, then we branch out. You're gonna have one crew, one contract. Then you get to a second crew, third crew, second contract, third contract. But hit that first crew and keep that first crew busy and schedule them out for a year before you bring on a second crew. Because if you don't, the problem we do when we're growing, we say, oh, this crew's busy for the next 3 months and then I'm gonna get another crew started on this other contract. You don't have any backup. In 3 months, that other crew's already done. Now what are you doing with them? You're laying them off because you put the other crew on the next job. It's better to delay the jobs out as far as you can to where you can got constant work for a year for one crew before we jump in and get a second crew and a third crew. Does that make sense? On growth. We have to manage growth. And that's what keeps the bills being paid. Okay? So this makes sense, you guys, and what makes a good business? What are the things, let's review that. What are the things that a business needs to have?
Optimal location.
Good location. Second,
Knowing the clientele.
what's that?
Understanding the clientele.
Understanding the clientele. Who's the client?
Yes.
Next is what?
Solving their needs.
Right, solving their needs, a very specific need that that customer has to have. Okay, what's the next thing they need to do?
Service or product.
You need a service or a product. Then you need to solve a real problem. Something that is really a problem. Okay? It really must be an issue, and you need to market to the problem.